Welcome to a new microphone in the Matrix, waters above crypto. We're getting a big red pill today in crypto land. So I'm going to share some of my thoughts on what I see going on in this market and a recap of content I released last week warning everyone of this transition into the summer solstice and the bearish price action we were anticipating leading up into the full moon on June 24th. So we'll jump into the Bitcoin and XRP charts, do some short-term analysis along with a quick look at Theta tokens since we are moving into the 3.0 mainnet launch in a couple weeks. If you're new here, we do cryptocurrency technical analysis and combine it with Gematria, Numerology, and Astrology to understand these markets. Feel free to subscribe and turn on the bell notification to stay updated on when new videos come out. And make sure to give this video a like and share this channel with other conscious people to help grow this community. And for those of you that want to learn how to do technical analysis and combine it with Gematria, you can join my Mastermind course. My email is in the description box to get in contact with me for access to the course. And with that being said, let's take the red pill. So, I actually want to start out with this chart right here, which is the Dow Jones Industrial Average, the US 30. And if you guys remember, a couple weeks ago, I actually drew this pink trend line. I did it in the middle of a video. And you can see this morning, we actually got a perfect bounce onto this trend line and then immediately got bought back up pretty substantially in a single trading day. And note that this market pretty much just opened up last night. And we're up 2% off that bounce. Now, that's a very strong bounce. The only thing that would be concerning is this cross right here, but I'll talk about that in a moment. The reason why I want to start here is because there's this narrative going around that the stock market is in the midst of crashing. And because the stock market is in the midst of crashing, that means that all the cryptos are going to crash. I just kind of want to share some of my thoughts on this. So first things first, from a technical perspective, we see that the RSI for the Dow actually went into an extremely oversold territory for a quick moment, around 27 RSI read, which is lower than what we got back in October of last year. And it's not nearly as low as the C-scam crash in March of last year, but it's still pretty damn low. And it could be a trend reversal. Now, I'm just doing this from a technical perspective. I'm not trying to get into my opinion just yet. So let's hide everything and see where we're at with this. So this was back in June of last year. We see we made an actual cycle high, short-term cycle high in June, and then we pulled back and we had this like pretty arduous trading range until we broke out into new highs in mid-August. That's actually exactly what I've been saying about cryptocurrencies. I've been saying I anticipate that until around August leading into September, it's probably going to be a very choppy market, lots of uncertainty, lots of FUD, and lots of miseducated social media influencers getting people to feel a certain way about something without giving them any actual proof or data or understanding as to what's actually going on. Now, we've gotten our cycle high in May, but we did actually create new highs for the NASDAQ and the, I believe the S&P both in this month as well. So let me just quickly check that. Yep, so we could see right here, we made our cycle high so far for the S&P in June, and the NASDAQ we made in June. Now, what we're seeing is pretty similar to last June, last year, where we got the cycle high and then we got a pretty substantial pullback. Now, this trend line, I should actually remove this and I'll redo this fib so you can see where the potential of this is going. And this is actually where I think it's going. I might be crazy for thinking this, but I think the Dow's at least going to 36,000 points. Now, we didn't hit that. We still have some room. But anyways, the point being is that now we've retraced into this trend line. And I know it's hard to see the trend line with all these moving averages, so I'm going to remove those. Okay, so we see June cycle high comes down to this pink trend line. Now let's go over here. Basically hit our highs around the same time frame, hit the trend line, bounce. Now, can we hit this trend line like 7 times before we move up? Of course. And as you can see, we would get resolution on this trend line if I just extend it all the way out by doing this. We would get a new high by utilizing just this trend line sometime in the beginning of September. Now, what's in the beginning of September? The Shemitah. So the Shemitah sabbatical year starts on September 7th. And that's about when I think this market's going to start to melt to the upside. Just my opinion. I could be wrong. I'm okay with being wrong, because at the end of the day, I look at this market from a very holistic viewpoint. And if it goes up or down, I'm a trader of the market as well if I need to be, and I will play my plays accordingly. Well, we're seeing a pretty substantial bounce in the Dow Jones, about 600% up today. We're seeing the S&P recover pretty nicely as well. Pretty much back on our trajectory. This chart is really weird looking. There you go. We could finish the day with a bullish engulfing candle on the S&P 500. And as for the NASDAQ, it's pretty much just chopping around at the previous highs of April. Beautiful. Pretty good. Now, in videos last week, I was discussing the dollar, and a lot of people have been saying, oh, the dollar's been getting squeezed and it's over too many shorts. And I was just, that's nonsense. What happened last week was the Federal Reserve spoke, the FOMC meeting, and the immediate knee jerk into the DXY and the US 10-year yield was obvious. It was this humongous green candle where it was the biggest single day growth for the dollar index since the C-scam crash. Now, what's going on here that I think is really interesting, although if you asked me about this last week, which I told everyone, is after the FOMC meeting, it takes about one trading week for this all to equilibrate. Now, we've only had 2 or 3 full trading days, and I suspected that it would take about up until the middle of this week to get some clarity. Now, this 236 is being breached. That was the hope of this rally for these people that were talking about us entering a deflationary period and this quote-unquote short squeeze on the dollar, which I believe is complete foolery and people who don't know technical analysis, and probably learn that from some random YouTube channel where they didn't go and do their own analysis before actually just believing what someone else said. With that being said, though, we're seeing that this is coming back down, and if it has a daily closure below this 236, I suspect it'll probably range in the mid-90s, and after it ranges in the mid-90s, we're going to have to see how that goes. But for the most part, I do not think that we're going to enter a deflationary period at this time. I just think we're chopping around because sell in May, walk away. We're going to chop around until about August. This is textbook. This is really nice to see, actually, because when the dollar puts pressure on everything, it makes cryptos discounted. And don't we love getting those discounts here? I sure do. Whenever I see the market getting fearful, I am a buyer. I am not buying shit that's pumped and extremely exuberant, because that is not sophisticated investing. So I do think it was important to start with these 2 pieces of information because they do play a role in the whole picture, and a lot of people skip over that stuff. So I'm going to start including it in my work, especially when we see really insane price movements in the dollar and the traditional markets. I do want to go to a clean chart very quickly, and I want to bring up the moon phases indicator. A lot of people were discussing this indicator, if it works or doesn't work, and I believe it does perfectly work. And what we can see is this was the new moon. We got our cycle high within 4 to 5 trading days of the previous new moon, and after that we went down bearish, and we're about to have a full moon in 3 days. So this is textbook how it typically acts. You see that right back here was a similar thing, actually quite a little bit exaggerated. We had the new moon followed by the micro cycle high in 10 trading days after that. So people just need patience, but this indicator works. And a lot of people were like, saying, oh, it doesn't work this. Yes, it did work. It worked actually pretty well, because we even got a new higher high in the structure. The high was back on the 26th at 40,000, and we breached that by a little bit around the new moon. It's pretty incredible. I also mentioned that we should expect to see this 42,000 be a very hard resistance to break. We'll get into that later in the video. So last night we had our solstice. We are moving into midsummer ritual. We have our full moon in a couple days. So we could bottom out before the full moon. We saw it happen right back here, and we've seen it happen right back here. You could see the bottom. We actually had a couple bearish trading days about 4 days before the full moon. Look right here. We have our bottom, And then we have about 3 days, we have our full moon. So it's pretty normal. Sometimes we have it exactly on the full moon, like right back here or right back here. And then sometimes it's a little early, or it could be a little later. Honestly, it doesn't really matter though, because it's giving us the energetic push and it gives us an answer before it happens. So here on this channel, we already knew this was going to happen. I've done a bunch of decodes on the full moon, and I also did an exclusive decode on the Patreon for my Patreon supporters. And I believe that we nailed it. You know, I mean, it's pretty incredible to see how well this indicator works. Another thing to mention is that we are heading towards the 174th day of the year, which will be on the day of the full moon. The 174 has significance because of the word New World Order in Gematria with the 174 in the English ordinal cipher. Also, watch out for the 177th day, which could be the block of time where we get a little bit of indecisiveness, and that would be the 27th of June. Again, this would all align pretty well as with options expiry and stuff going on with that, and I don't think we're going to get much bloodier than this. Perhaps we do get a day where we chop down to like 31,000 flat and then we pop back up, but so far what I'm seeing, if I just wanted to quickly call this out, we have our low. Sorry, this, I don't know why TradingView puts these. Anyways, higher low, higher low. They're wicks. They don't really matter. I mean, I would love to see a candle body close tonight, 33,400, 33,500. But for the most part, it's just classic manipulation. And yeah, pretty much all that's coming. So let's quickly talk about Bitcoin dominance before we fulfill our analysis. So we can see right here, I'm going to move my moon cycles indicator away, and I'm going to add in my 8 and 55 simple moving averages. Last week, we were talking about this cross right here where the 8 moves above the 55 simple. That is a bullish cross in my books. That's what I like to use. And it looks like it's regaining strength since it got a wick high of 46%. And I do believe that once we start heading towards above the 46.5, we're going to quickly head up into the 50s. When this happens, great. It's sort of the market just balancing itself out. When Bitcoin dominance moves quickly to the downside, it typically needs to recover, and it'll teeter-totter back and forth as the market shifts liquidity. So right now we're in a phase where there's clearly a lot more of a scarce or scary fearful outlook, and Bitcoin would be considered more of a safe haven versus these altcoins. That's just the way it works. That's why if Bitcoin pulls down 7%, you could see across the board everything else is down 10, 12, 13, 14%. It's pretty standard. So, yep, we're going to move on from this, but really quickly, if you guys can, just take a second to give this video a like. I'd appreciate it. Got to boost this video so that more people can see this incredible work we're doing over here. Wow. Dow Jones up 600%. Sorry, 600 points. Excuse me. Amazing. Dollar getting fleeced right now, down 0.5%. How hilarious would it be if the dollar just completely loses all of its gains? We do have to watch out though on this 200 exponential. You can see this green line. That's scary. We don't want that to hold. That needs to break, and that'd be really nice. But anyways, let's just quickly finish up with our Bitcoin TA, and then we're going to move into XRP. So one thing I will say though is we're in a noticeable range between 42,000 and 30,000. So 40 to 42 is like our resistance, and 30 to 32 would be our main support. And we're looking at about a 10K trading range, massive trading range. And whenever Bitcoin decides to break above that, it's going to carry all the altcoins along with it substantially. Whenever it breaks below that, of course, it's going to drain the altcoins even more. The problem is though, is the altcoins are pretty beat. They're pretty beaten up. I don't see them going down much more. I mean, a lot of these altcoins, with the exception of AMP, I saw that one in yesterday's Red Pill episode. That's extremely overvalued. Solana, that was another one that was just too exuberant. There's a couple of plays here and there that are just way overvalued for where everything else is at right now. And yeah, Anyways, let's move into XRP. Again, my last video, I made an XRP prediction for the middle of July. We're far away from that, and I'm sticking to it. I do believe we're going to see bullish energy moving into the next new moon, which is around July 9th. And I gave all of my Gematria and numerology and astrology reasons as to why I believe that XRP should be breaching the $1.20 and heading into this 140 region before potentially rolling over into the end of July. But for now, that call stands, and I'm going to stick to it. Anyways, we were doing our red pill episode yesterday night. It was a long one. We went over a bunch of altcoins, but particularly I was feeling very bearish about XRP in the immediate short term. The closures that we were seeing on the weekly, for instance, if I pull up the 21, 13, and 34 exponential, we closed below this orange line, which is the 21 EMA. That's bearish. And then we held support on the 34. I would disregard today because it's the start of the trading week, so it doesn't really matter on the weekly. We wouldn't be looking at that for another 6 days. But for the most part, that's pretty bearish. And then all of these exponential moving averages are downward sloping except for the 34. So I anticipate the 34 to hold if I just had to quickly sum it up. Now, if I go to the 3-day, we do have a little bit of a problem, which is that the 8 and the 55 simple look like they're about to cross. They're pinching together, and that right there is very bearish because it's on a larger scale time frame. So buyers need to step into this. Seriously. This is like the lettuce hands coin right now. I am disappointed. I've been disappointed in XRP for a long time now because of how everything else has been doing. Again, I was bullish on it back when it was at these levels here because it was suppressed. Bollinger Bands were tightening, and we used Gematria to determine the first time of XRP hitting $1 in over 3 years. We nailed that call. And I would assume a lot of people made a lot of money off of that. I actually had a couple people reaching out to me around this time frame talking about being able to pay for a car, being able to help pay for student loans for their kids. And they were thanking me and all this stuff. And it was super overwhelming for me, and it made me feel really happy. But once I saw that this was having a ton of resistance in the golden pocket area, as you can see right here, these golden lines, that was really worrying. And when we saw this huge pullback, I wasn't surprised because before we even broke out, I was telling everyone on this channel, typically this is what XRP does. It returns right back down to where it broke out. And that's what we're seeing today. We might be seeing a double bottom. What I would like, though, and what will happen are different things, but what I would like is for this daily candle to be bought up above this 200 simple moving average, this dark green line. This would be the first daily closure below the 200 simple in, wow, pretty much back since the SEC dump. So this is looking very bearish. Now let's look at the RSI. Oh, well, for one, the MACD just crossed bearish today. And the RSI is right now below around 33. Wow, it's really bad, guys. I'm still holding my call for the bullish move up, and that's only because this structure right here where it looks kind of like trending to the downside, I'll show you what I mean by removing everything. It looks similar in my opinion. If I put it in log scale, I think, boom, perfect. Okay, so you see this move right here, this downtrend where it's in a channel. That's how I believe we're in right now. This day is very, very bottomy. It's looking very bottomy. So tomorrow, if we got a big green buyback, I would not be surprised. I'm not saying that will happen, but I do see that in the cards. That's typically what happens on a reversal. A reversal is when we have our low price and then we get this really exuberant buyback, potentially a bullish engulfing candle somewhere around 79 cents. And then that would be our sign of like equilibrium. But we do have the full moon coming in a couple days, so this could chop around. Although Bitcoin tends to be more reactive to the moon, and these altcoins are just more reactive to Bitcoin. So they do ride in Bitcoin's coattails, but sometimes because of Gematria, we'll have outliers where, for instance, the Gematria perfectly lines up for XRP, and we can numerologically figure out what date it will happen on. And we do have breakouts on certain coins on dates where Bitcoin's stagnant, and that would be indicative of a Bitcoin dominance situation or a day where there's some, just some ritual thing going on. Now, I'm going to quickly wrap this up, but I think for the most part, anyone who is able to watch my last video, you kind of see where I'm projecting this. I do think this is a signal for a double bottom. If this breaks structure this week, I would anticipate it to just be a wick. So it might wick down lower and then get bought back up. Now, part of my prediction video, I also mentioned what could happen to the downside. And I do think that people need to know what that was discussing, because this can go either way. Please understand, I am not a bull. I'm not a bear. I don't play a role in this market. I'm a technical analyst. I am open-minded to all things happening. I'm not a bull. I'm not a bear. I'm definitely not a pig. I am a wolf. I follow the moon. I didn't make that name Waters Above Wolves just for fun. It's a serious name. Also, go study the story of Jupiter, where Jupiter shoots a lightning bolt into the firmament, aka waters above, and the waters above breaks down and creates floods, just like the Noah story. Really interesting stuff. Anyways, I'll make a full video on that soon. So this is looking pretty bearish, so I'm going to go to Theta because pretty much the story here is this does look very bottomy. This is very oversold. This does look like it's time to reverse. XRP has been beaten, slapped, and spit on. It needs buyers. And I think that this was a very humbling experience for all XRP holders, especially people who back here were telling me that it was impossible for XRP to break below $1. Well, here we are. And actually, all of the analysis that we were doing in early April before this breakout has been textbook correct. So let's move on to Theta. Now, I actually bought some Theta this morning. That's not financial advice. Don't follow what I do. But the only reason I was buying some is because we're moving into mainnet in 10 days. Another thing that I'm seeing is this trend line right here. It's a very weird trend line. Again, I don't like using trend lines. And whenever I do use them, I use them in a very unorthodox fashion because I see their utility in a way to determine where we can get a gravitation back or push into. So I'll discuss that later. That's something I describe in my course because a lot of people are pattern traders, and the problem with pattern trading is this isn't Forex. This isn't the stock market. Crypto is extremely volatile. So when you're fucking around with trend lines, you're kind of wasting your time. That's why when you see my analysis, I'm using the fibs, I'm using moving averages, I'm using RSI, MACD. I'm trying to be utilizing horizontal trading ranges such as Wyckoff. I've been using Wyckoff since day one on this channel. It's nothing new for us here. And these trend lines are like not even tertiary. I would consider them like fourth or fifth or sixth most important thing. So if you're new to this and you really want to learn how to do technical analysis properly, join my course and notice how I don't really love focusing on trend lines. They're not my they don't work. I'll just go ahead and say they really don't work that well. There are situations in Bitcoin where they seem to hold really well, but for the most part I've seen so many failed breakouts come back bearish. So with that being said, we seem to be just backtesting this 236 area. It's hard to tell because this liquidity wick was so extreme. But again, if I was to pull that up to a more normal level, you can see that we're pretty much backtesting that. It's not important though. We don't need to be exact. With crypto, it's impossible to be exact because the volatility is so high. Now, if we get a daily close above this trend line with the body, the candle body, I would just suspect this to be a normal pullback to the 236 after a breakout. So when we break out of the 236, it's pretty normal to see resistance into the 0.5 fib as high as the 786. That would be the bull trap area, or in Wyckoff analysis, it would be called the automatic rally. And then you would get pulled back to the 236 as your main support. So I looked at this as a great buying opportunity before mainnet launch, and now we don't know how bullish this can get into mainnet, especially if today is the bottom for everything. If today, 3 days before the full moon, is just as dumpy as it's going to get and it wants to reverse out of here, fantastic. That's beautiful. That's telling us that this shit could rampage to the upside. So I don't know what could happen, and that's why I'm using the lowest price day to make my buy-ins. I was buying all back here, obviously, because I'm super bullish on Theta, and anytime I was seeing $5, I was scooping that up like a madman. My mouth was watering. So I do see this moving bullish. I would say that it's potential maybe $11 or $12 before mainnet launch. It could even go more bullish than that, but I'm sticking to around the more conservative levels because there's not as much liquidity in this space as there used to be overall. The New World Order is just kind of fucking with people for now, and that's typically what they do during the summertime, the American summer, or this hemisphere's summertime, I should say, because I know everyone around the world is watching this channel. So anyways, I'm going to end it at that. Feel free to become a Mastermind community supporter over on the Patreon, patreon.com/watersabove. Also, if you're interested in learning about technical analysis, the way that I teach it, and how to utilize Gematria Numerology and Astrology with the analysis, you can join my Mastermind course. The description box has my contact details if you wanted to shoot me an email to get access to the course. Enjoy the rest of your day in the Matrix. Much love.